the story of the Smith family who lives in New York. Mr. Smith used to stay away from home due to work. Mrs. Smith was used to it, but it was getting difficult to manage two small children, a new apartment, and a new place alone. It was July 26th. It was raining heavily in New York City. That night, Mr. Smith was out of the office. Mrs. Smith was sleeping with her two children and watching TV in the living room. It was around 1 a.m. She thought Jason was having fun at night. She said in anger, "Jason, haven't you slept yet?" But it wasn't Jason. It was a strange-looking 18 to 19-year-old boy. Mrs. Smith was a bit scared. She wondered why this boy was behaving like a child. As soon as she moved forward, the boy went straight to the children's room. She went in and looked for him, but she couldn't find him. As soon as she opened the children's room, the boy was there. Mrs. Smith called her husband, but there was no network on the phone, and someone started knocking on the door. Mrs. Smith opened the door with courage. An old woman took a cloth in her hand and went to the children's room. Mrs. Smith also ran inside. "Stop! Who are you? What do you want? Stop!" As soon as she entered, the door closed. As soon as Mrs. Smith opened the door, she saw that the woman was standing on the railing with the boy. The woman turned and looked at Mrs. Smith. Then she jumped down with the boy. Mrs. Smith couldn't understand anything. She immediately picked up her two children from there. She took the car keys and went to her family friend's house. She found out when the building was being constructed on July 26, 2005. A woman and her mentally ill son fell from the 25th floor and died. That apartment is still vacant, and no one wants to live there after hearing this incident.